Joe Rogan just revealed something about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban that nobody saw coming. During a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan talked about how fame and temptation destroy celebrity marriages. But then, he told a story that fans instantly connected to one couple, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban. Without naming names, Rogan described a famous musician whose wife found out about his affair and warned him with one line that ended their entire marriage. "End it now, or I end us." The internet lit up. Listeners clipped that part, replayed it, and within hours, theories exploded that Rogan wasn't talking hypothetically at all. He was talking about Keith Urban. And if that's true, it explains everything. Their sudden split, their cold silence online, and why Nicole moved out long before the divorce even went public. Because that line, "End it now or I end us," might have been the exact warning Nicole gave Keith before everything fell apart. And hey, if you're new here, help me hit my goal of 1,000 subscribers. It really helps me keep bringing you these deep dives into the stories Hollywood tries to hide, because this one might be the most personal yet. When Rogan first mentioned the story, fans brushed it off until they noticed just how specific the details were. A musician constantly touring, a wife with an A-list career of her own, nearly 20 years together, and a marriage that ended just months after a major public appearance. Every single detail lined up perfectly with Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman. And that's what made people look back at their relationship differently. Because before all of this, they looked untouchable. They met in 2005, married a year later, and built what looked like one of the strongest marriages in entertainment. Nicole once called Keith her miracle, and Keith credited her for helping him get sober and saving his life. Their connection felt real, emotional, grounded, and deep. Fans believed they'd beaten the odds. But as Rogan subtly hinted, even the strongest relationships can't survive when one partner starts living a double life. He didn't have to name them. The timeline told the story for him. Because behind the smiles and the glamorous red carpets, the cracks had already started to show. And Nicole, the one who had once saved Keith, was about to become the one who walked away for good. To the outside world, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban had it all. Fame, family, fortune, and almost 20 years of marriage. But behind the red carpets and award shows, insiders say the distance between them had quietly been growing for years. Keith's touring schedule kept him on the road for more than 200 days a year. Nicole was anchored in Nashville and Los Angeles, raising their daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret. Every photo that looked picture perfect hid months of separation and tension building in silence. Friends of the couple have said that Nicole tried everything, visiting him on tour, flying out between filming schedules, even bringing the kids to surprise him on the road. But something had changed. Keith wasn't the same man she'd once known. He was distant, distracted, always checking his phone, always claiming it was band business or tour planning. And when Nicole asked if something was wrong, he brushed it off with charm. "You worry too much, Nick. Everything's fine." But it wasn't. Because soon, Nicole would find proof that everything wasn't fine, and that her marriage, the one she'd fought for, the one she thought she'd saved, was hanging by a thread.
It started small, a few inconsistencies, messages that didn't add up, nights when Keith said he was exhausted but stayed up on his phone long after she'd gone to bed. Nicole had been in the industry long enough to recognize the signs. She'd seen friends go through it, the denials, the half-truths, the "it's just work" excuses. But still, she didn't want to believe it. Not Keith, not after everything they'd survived together. Then, one night, while he was asleep, she saw a message flash across his screen. It wasn't from a manager or a crew member. It was from someone whose name she didn't recognize, with a message that said far too much in just a few words. That was the moment everything changed. Nicole didn't explode. She didn't scream or throw accusations. Instead, she started quietly connecting the dots. Flight logs, hotel stays, repeated tour stops where the same faces appeared backstage. And what she uncovered painted a story she couldn't ignore. Keith was seeing someone during the tour. That discovery broke her, not just because of the betrayal, but because she had warned him years earlier that fame, temptation, and distance could destroy them. She'd begged him never to become that kind of man, and now he was. But instead of ending it right away, Nicole did something that would define her for years to come. She gave Keith one final chance, one morning that would decide the fate of their marriage.
When Nicole confronted Keith, it wasn't a scene out of a movie. There was no shouting, no dramatic storming out, just silence. The kind that feels heavier than words ever could. She laid out the proof, the messages, the hotel overlaps, the late-night calls that didn't match his schedule. Keith tried to talk his way out of it, at first with charm, then with excuses, then with denial. But Nicole had the evidence right there in front of him. He couldn't talk his way out of this one. And that's when she gave him the warning that would echo across the internet months later, the one Joe Rogan's fans would later claim he referenced on his podcast. End it now, or I end us. Nicole meant every word. She wasn't angry. She was finished. She told him this was his one and only chance to come clean, to stop the lies, to fight for their marriage. For a moment, Keith promised he would. He swore he'd fix things, that he'd end whatever it was and prove his love. Nicole wanted to believe him. After all, she'd stood by him through rehab, through fame, through every dark chapter of his life. But deep down, she knew something had shifted. The trust was gone. And just weeks later, the truth would prove that Keith never took her warning seriously, because by the time she filed for divorce, the affair was still quietly happening behind the scenes.
By the time summer rolled around, the world still thought everything between Nicole and Keith was fine. On June 26th, she posted a photo for their anniversary, smiling, holding his hand, captioned, "Happy anniversary, baby." Keith didn't post one back. He just left a single heart emoji. Fans thought it was sweet, but to those who knew what was really happening, it was a sign that the marriage was already gone. Behind closed doors, Nicole had made her decision. She'd given Keith the warning. He didn't take it seriously, and now she was following through. In September, Nicole quietly filed for divorce in Davidson County, Tennessee. No public statement, no interview, just paperwork. Cold, precise, final. When the documents became public, fans were stunned. 19 years of marriage, gone in an instant. But the most shocking detail wasn't the timing, it was the custody split. Nicole was granted custody of their daughters for 306 days a year. Keith? Only 59! That's 83% to 17%. People couldn't believe it. Why would a father so devoted to his family accept such limited time without a fight? Unless he couldn't fight. Unless he knew what Nicole had on him, and dragging it into court would mean exposing everything. So Keith signed the papers. No public argument, no legal battle, no attempt to defend himself. Just quiet acceptance, and a silence that said more than words ever could.
After the divorce papers were filed, whispers started spreading through Nashville and the country music world. People close to the couple said Nicole had proof, not rumors, not speculation, but hard evidence that left Keith with no defense. Sources claimed it wasn't just a few suspicious texts. Nicole allegedly had photos, travel receipts, and even messages from people within Keith's touring crew confirming what she already knew. It all tied back to his time on the road. The same cities, the same crew, the same woman showing up again and again. Nicole had the timeline, and it matched perfectly with his tour schedule. That's why she didn't need to drag the fight into court. The evidence spoke for itself. Keith's team wanted to keep everything private. They knew if those details ever became public, it would destroy his image, the clean, family-first country star who'd built his brand on loyalty and love. So instead of fighting, Keith signed the custody agreement without hesitation. He kept his distance from interviews, avoided questions about Nicole, and focused on moving forward. But fans couldn't help noticing the shift. His tone changed, his performances felt different, quieter, more distant, almost haunted. It was as if he knew the truth was still out there, hovering above his head, waiting to surface. And for Nicole, that was enough. She didn't need revenge, she just wanted peace. But the world wasn't done with the story yet, because when fans started connecting the dots between Joe Rogan's viral comments and Nicole's timeline, the theory exploded into something no one could control.
It started as just another podcast moment. Joe Rogan talking about the pressures of fame, temptation, and the cost of touring life. But once the clip began circulating, fans couldn't ignore how perfectly it matched Keith and Nicole's story. Rogan mentioned a famous musician who was constantly touring, whose wife discovered an affair, and who was given one final warning: end it now or I end us. The internet did what it always does. It investigated. Viewers compared timelines, interviews, and public posts. They found that Rogan's description lined up exactly with the final months of Nicole and Keith's marriage. Nicole's June anniversary post, Keith's minimal response, the September divorce filing, the 17% custody split. Every piece fit like a puzzle no one had realized they were assembling. Fans began sharing side-by-side screenshots, reposting old interviews, and pointing out how Keith's recent performances carried a darker, more withdrawn energy. One viral comment summed it up: "He's not heartbroken, he's guilty." Within days, headlines started flooding social media. Did Joe Rogan just expose Keith Urban? And what began as speculation turned into one of the biggest conversations in both Hollywood and Nashville. Nicole never addressed the rumors. She didn't have to. Her silence was louder than any statement. Because by now, everyone had reached the same conclusion. The warning was real, and Keith ignored it. After the story caught fire online, Keith's world quietly started to crumble. Concert attendance dipped. Interviews were suddenly postponed. His PR team began tightening his media appearances, making sure no reporter could ask the question everyone wanted answered. For years, Keith had been the image of the devoted husband, the man who praised Nicole in every acceptance speech, who told the world she saved him. But now, those same clips were being replayed with a completely different tone. When fans looked back at his 2024 AFI speech, the one where he told the audience, "If you want to see what love in action looks like, give that a whirl," it didn't sound romantic anymore. It sounded rehearsed, like a performance designed to protect a reputation that was already cracking. The online reaction was swift. Country music fans who once saw him as a symbol of traditional values felt betrayed. "You can't talk about loyalty when you're living a lie," one fan commented. "He didn't just lose Nicole, he lost our respect," said another. Meanwhile, Nicole's image only grew stronger. She stayed silent, focused on her children and her work, never acknowledging the noise. That silence became power.
She didn't need to explain herself. The facts and Keith's own actions did that for her. And in a world where reputation is everything, Keith's clean-cut image had been replaced with something much harder to shake: guilt. He wasn't the heartbroken husband people once pitied. He was the man who ignored the one warning that could have saved everything.
In Hollywood, silence is rare, especially when the entire world is talking about you. But Nicole Kidman has always played by her own rules. While tabloids begged for an interview and late-night hosts made jokes about the divorce, Nicole said nothing. No statements, no public digs, no tearful explanations, just complete, deliberate silence. And that silence spoke volumes. Insiders say Nicole's decision was strategic, not emotional. She'd already lived through public heartbreak before, during her split with Tom Cruise. She knew how the media weaponized emotion. This time, she wasn't giving anyone that power. Instead, she let the story burn itself out while quietly rebuilding behind the scenes. She focused on her daughters. She dove into new projects. She was spotted spending time with close friends, calm, collected, and completely unbothered. Every move she made sent the same message without saying a word. I'm not broken. I'm free. Meanwhile, Keith's absence from public events only made her silence louder. When he skipped red carpets and avoided cameras, fans noticed. Nicole didn't have to expose him. His actions were doing that all on their own. And for many, that's what made the story so haunting. Not the affair itself, but the way Nicole handled it with quiet precision and total control. Because in the end, it wasn't rage or revenge that destroyed Keith Urban's image. It was Nicole's silence.
At the end of it all, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just another Hollywood breakup. It was a warning, a lesson, and a reminder that fame can't protect you from the truth. Joe Rogan's viral comments might have started the conversation, but it was what came after that made people stop and look closer. Because if what Nicole allegedly told Keith before his affair was real, if she really said, "Don't make me find out," then this story isn't about gossip. It's about what happens when someone ignores the one person who truly knew them. Nicole Kidman walked away with her dignity intact. Keith Urban walked away with regret. And as for Joe Rogan, he walked away knowing he may have just revealed one of Hollywood's most painful secrets, even if he didn't mean to. Because sometimes the truth doesn't need to be confirmed, it just needs to be heard. And hey, if you're enjoying these deep dives into celebrity scandals and untold Hollywood moments, make sure to hit that subscribe button and help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers. You won't want to miss what's coming next.